15 Black R&B legends with shocking deathbed confessions. They lit up the stage like no one else ever could. But in their final breaths, they whispered truths that sent shockwaves through the world. James Brown's death still lingers in mystery, wrapped in whispers of poison and betrayal. Marvin Gaye's father carried a confession soaked in blood and heartbreak, forever marking one of music's darkest family tragedies. And Michael Jackson, trembling behind closed doors, confided that someone was plotting to end his life. But that's just the beginning. These are the stories of 15 Black R&B legends, voices that define generations, yet left behind obsessions that refuse to fade. Beneath the spotlight and the fame lies a labyrinth of conspiracies, hidden sins, and haunting last words that echo through time. Some carried secrets they never dare to share until their dying moments. Others exposed dark plots, and a few left behind mysteries so chilling they've never been solved. Behind the glitter, beyond the glory, there's a darkness so deep it'll make your soul tremble. So brace yourself, because once you hear the shocking final words of these 15 R&B legends, you'll never look at these icons the same way again. Number 1. James Brown wasn't just the godfather of soul. He was a force of nature, a storm in motion, a man who could set a stage on fire and leave it burning long after he was gone. But when the lights finally dimmed, James didn't exit the world with another explosive performance. He left behind something far darker, a whisper from his deathbed. "They tried to poison me." It wasn't the defiant cry of a performer in his prime, but the fragile murmur of a man standing at death's door. The same voice that once electrified the world with "I feel good," now trembled with fear and suspicion. His daughter, Yama Brown, later said her father never spoke without meaning. Every word was deliberate, and that's why his chilling final confession has haunted the family ever since. They pleaded for authorities to reopen the case, but the truth vanished like smoke, leaving only rumors, questions, and a heavy sense of unease. Whispers spread quickly. Did James Brown know too much? Was he up against something bigger than fame itself? Because James wasn't just a musician, he was an empire. His name carried hundreds of millions in copyrights, royalties, and contracts. For a black man who stood tall, proud, and unbending in a world that often tried to break him, enemies were never hard to find. And then came the details no one wants to say out loud. Just days before his death, James was battling pneumonia. Doctors believed he would recover. But suddenly, his condition plummeted. A nurse later recalled how he rasped, over and over, "Don't let them touch me." Who were they? No one ever found out. Yet those words froze the blood of everyone who heard them. For his fans, grief was mixed with dread. If James Brown, one of the most powerful voices in music history, could be silenced like that, what hope was there for anyone else? The stage that had once been his throne now looked like a trap. His death wasn't just the loss of a legend. It became a haunting reminder of the deadly cost of greatness and the dangerous price of immortality in the music world. Number 2. Marvin Gaye. The heartbreak of James Brown's life was tragic, but what unfolded within Marvin Gaye's family remains one of the most haunting stories in music history. It's a wound that still aches in the hearts of fans decades later. A father who once thundered from the church pulpit, preaching salvation and love, became the very man who destroyed his own son's future. We can understand when fame, temptation, or self-destruction bring down an artist. But when the fall comes from one's own blood, it becomes something darker, a betrayal that defies reason. Behind prison walls, when the world had gone silent, Marvin Gaye Sr. uttered words that would forever chill the public. "I never liked Marvin. I always hated him." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even an explanation. It was a confession so cold and bitter that it shattered the illusion of a sacred family bond. The man who should have been a source of protection admitted to harboring hatred toward his own child. In that moment, the mask of holiness fell, revealing a truth too cruel to forget. Whispers spread that Marvin Gaye Sr. could never bear his son's success. In a time when respect and dominance defined manhood, watching his child surpass him in fame and influence may have ignited a quiet rage. In the Black community of that era, such power shifts often stirred resentment rather than pride. For years, that jealousy burned like a slow fire inside the father's heart. Marvin himself often confided that he lived under his father's shadow, a shadow that dimmed every triumph, every note, every song. The cruel irony was that Marvin, the voice behind what's going on, who sang about love, healing, and peace, could not find those things in his own home. He could comfort a wounded world, but not the man who raised him. And when his father spoke those final, chilling words, the tragedy reached its breaking point. It wasn't just the death of a son. It was the death of forgiveness itself. What horrified fans most wasn't only the act, but the truth it exposed. Even genius cannot survive the storm of envy and bitterness within one's own house. By his own confession, Marvin Gaye Sr. carved one of the darkest chapters in American music history. The pain lingers, not just because we lost Marvin, but because it reminds us that some wounds cut so deep they never truly heal. Number 3. Teddy Pendergrass. The screech of tires. The shatter of glass. Cold steel twisting under the glow of city lights. That night in March 1982 would change Teddy Pendergrass's life forever. In a single violent instant, the man whose velvet voice once melted hearts across America was trapped in a body that would never move the same again. The headlines called it a tragic accident. But years later, in quiet conversations with close friends, Teddy would murmur the words that sent chills down their spines. It wasn't an accident. That one sentence opened a door to darkness. Teddy wasn't just another R&B singer. He was a phenomenon. The first solo R&B artist to achieve 5 consecutive platinum albums. His fame burned too hot, too fast. And in the cutthroat world of the music industry, he knew the rule all too well. When you rise too high, someone will always try to pull you down. Those who loved him remembered how uneasy he became after the crash. There are people who didn't want me to keep winning, he told them. And the most chilling detail, he wasn't alone that night. Sitting beside him in his Rolls-Royce was Tenna Watson, a little-known transgender nightclub performer. Her presence turned the wreck into tabloid gold, igniting a storm of scandal that tarnished his image overnight. Then came the whispers about faulty brakes, missing reports, and an investigation that never truly happened. His family believed powerful hands had silenced the truth. Behind the velvet curtains of fame, rumors spread. Teddy had become too outspoken, too independent, too defiant of the labels that tried to own him. He was demanding fair contracts, control, and freedom, things few Black artists of his era dared to fight for. And that defiance, some believed, made him a target. But what makes Teddy's story unforgettable isn't just the shadow of conspiracy. It's his will to rise again. Confined to a wheelchair, he still returned to the stage, his voice carrying the same fire, his eyes burning with determination. Yet in private, the pain remained. I didn't fall because of fate, he once confessed. I fell because of people. For countless fans, those words confirmed what their hearts had long suspected. The 1982 crash wasn't mere misfortune, it was mystery. And when Teddy Pendergrass passed away in 2010, that question still hung heavy in the air. A wound in the soul of R&B, whispering of a legend who may have been silenced before his time. Number 4. Ray Charles. If Teddy Pendergrass left us haunted by mystery after his tragic crash, then Ray Charles left the world stunned, with a confession that no one saw coming. It wasn't scandal. It wasn't rumor. It was the raw, unfiltered truth of a man who gave everything to music, yet fought chaos in silence. On his deathbed in 2004, the blind genius who saw sound more clearly than most see life itself finally revealed the full scope of his legacy. 12 children by 9 different women. To the world, Ray Charles was the architect of a new sound, fusing gospel, jazz, blues, and R&B into something eternal. But behind the curtain, his life played out like a stormy symphony of love, lust, and regret. For years, fans believed he was a devoted father with only a few kids. Then, the truth struck like a lightning bolt. shattering the illusion and exposing another side of the legend. A man of unstoppable passion, but undeniable flaws. What most never knew was that Ray quietly created a trust fund, ensuring that every one of his children, even those rarely seen in public, will be taken care of. In his final days, he gathered them all, an unprecedented family meeting confirmed by those closest to him, to say goodbye and divide his legacy equally. Not everyone took it well. For some, the revelation came too late. But for Ray, it was the only way to leave this world without lies. His confession didn't just shock, it resonated. Because his story reflected the hidden struggles of an entire generation of Black artists who rose from pain and poverty, only to wrestle with their own demons behind fame's bright lights. Music made Ray Charles immortal, but desire and secrecy carved scars into the man beneath the legend. In the end, his honesty didn't tarnish his legacy, it deepened it. He was no longer just an untouchable icon, but a repentant father, an imperfect man who had the courage to face the truth before his final breath. And maybe that's why Ray Charles is remembered with even greater reverence today. His last words reminded us of a haunting truth. Even legends whose songs feel eternal carry secrets more complicated than the melodies they leave behind. Number 5. Etta James. At last, those two words, that timeless melody, made the world believe Etta James was love itself, soft, sweet, and eternal. But behind the spotlight and that radiant smile lived another Etta, one haunted by demons the stage lights could never chase away. Her voice could melt hearts, but her soul carried scars from addiction, heartbreak, and forbidden love affairs that shook the industry to its core. Before her passing in 2012, Etta didn't hide behind perfection. She tore away the mask and showed the world her truth, raw, flawed, and painfully human. She wasn't just a singer, she was a revolution, a Black woman who stood toe-to-toe with giants and proved that power and passion had no color, no limits. Yet behind that fearless spirit raged a storm of loneliness and dependence, battles that claimed the lives of countless R&B legends. For Etta, it wasn't just about the drugs. It was about silencing the emptiness fame could never fill. Whispers followed her, tales of secret love affairs with some of the biggest male stars of her time, men whose names could shake the music world even today. Though the rumors were never confirmed, Etta's own confessions kept the fire alive, turning her life into something mythical, equal parts romance and tragedy. Her final words echoed with aching solitude, a haunting reminder that the most beautiful songs are often born from the most tortured souls. She had it all: fame, respect, and a legacy carved into music history. But behind the applause was a woman searching for love in secret arms, seeking comfort in chaos, and finally finding peace only through her brutal honesty. In her final moments, Etta James was no longer untouchable. She was real, wounded, imperfect, and free. It wasn't a downfall, it was liberation. And for that, Etta will forever be remembered. Not just for the voice that made the world fall in love, but for the courage to bear her truth when it mattered most. Number 6. Jackie Wilson, the shadow behind Mr. Excitement. The story of Jackie Wilson feels like something straight out of a noir film, glamour flashing in the spotlight, while darkness lurked just beyond the glow. They called him Mr. Excitement, a man who could set a stage ablaze with a single spin, his voice dripping with soul and fire. But behind the showmanship, there was a chilling secret, a story whispered in his final days as he lay motionless in a coma. According to his family, Jackie spoke of control, manipulation, and contracts signed under pressure, of being trapped by the invisible hand of the mafia. It wasn't hard to believe. In the 1960s and 70s, organized crime didn't just run nightclubs, it ran the entire entertainment industry. And for a Black superstar like Jackie, fame often came with hidden chains, unfair deals, constant threats, and a silence that could get you killed. Then came the night in 1975 that changed everything. Jackie was performing his signature hit, Lonely Teardrops, when he suddenly collapsed mid-song. It was as if fate had written his final act. He never spoke clearly again. From that night on, all that remained were his family's haunting memories, his repeated laments about shadowy figures and contracts that stole his freedom. To the public, Jackie Wilson will forever be remembered as the electrifying showman, the dazzling icon of rhythm and soul. But beneath that brilliance lies an unanswered question. Was he simply a victim of fate, or a casualty of the dark forces that once ruled the music world? No one ever proved the mafia's role. Yet his last words, those trembling confessions, were enough to make many believe that Jackie Wilson didn't just fall. He was pushed by a system that chewed up its brightest stars. Today, the ghost of Mr. Excitement still lingers. Every note he sang, every record he left behind, carries both fire and sorrow, the sound of a man who may have lived and died under the grip of powers unseen. And that's why even now, the name Jackie Wilson still sends shivers down the spine. Number 7. Sam Cooke. There are few stories in music history as haunting as that of Sam Cooke, a genius silenced at the very height of his brilliance. In 1964, his life ended under a cloud of mystery and controversy that still refuses to fade. But the eeriest part? The warning came from Sam himself. Friends recall how he'd whisper in moments of unease, "They're after me." Sam wasn't just a singer with a velvet voice. He was a visionary. One of the first black artists bold enough to stand up to the system that tried to own him. He built his own publishing company, took control of his copyrights, and dared to challenge the powerful gatekeepers of the music industry. That courage won him respect, but also made him enemies. Weeks before his death, Sam jotted down cryptic notes in his diary, fragments about a dangerous game and shadowy figures trying to take everything from him. When those pages surfaced years later, they didn't bring closure, they deepened the mystery. Was Sam Cooke murdered or silenced? Just hours before that fateful night, he was full of life, talking plans, dreaming big, ready to redefine his career. How could a man so focused on the future vanish so suddenly? To many, it felt less like tragedy and more like a setup. His chilling words, "They're after me," began to sound less like paranoia and more like prophecy. Sam's death wasn't just the fall of one man. It was a symbol of how black artists in America were often trapped by invisible chains. Even as they sang of freedom and love, forces in the shadows pulled the strings. Sam Cooke gave the world music that uplifted souls and sparked hope. But his end was a stark reminder that brilliance has a price. His warning wasn't only personal, it was an echo from the heart of black music itself. A cry from a soul, where genius too often met the quiet hand of power. Number 8. Curtis Mayfield. Unlike Sam Cooke, whose life ended in one tragic instant, Curtis Mayfield's downfall was a slow, painful unraveling, raw, human, and heartbreaking. In 1990, a freak stage accident left him paralyzed from the neck down. From that moment on, he lived in a wheelchair, his body silenced, but his soul still screaming. It was during those quiet, trapped years that Curtis made one of the most haunting confessions ever spoken by a soul legend. "We ruined ourselves with the drug culture," he admitted. These weren't the words of a bitter man. They came from the same voice that once lifted millions with Move On Up, a song that gave Black America wings to dream higher, to push through, to believe. But behind that radiant optimism lay a darkness few ever saw. Too many of his peers were swallowed by addiction, and Curtis wasn't immune. When the spotlight faded and the applause died, he saw it clearly. His own generation had let drugs steal their brilliance, destroy friendships, and drown creativity in despair. In his final days, Curtis didn't speak just for himself. He mourned for the fallen, the artists who never came back, the bands that broke apart before their time, the dreams that overdosed before they could take flight. His regret had grown larger than personal pain. It had become a sorrowful elegy for an entire generation that could have built a golden era, but watched it tarnish before their eyes. Those who heard his words felt them like a slow, tolling bell. Heavy, mournful, true. Curtis wasn't reaching for drama. He was confessing, and that confession cut deep. A generation that once sang about hope had been undone by its own demons. His truth wasn't just an admission, it was a reckoning. Soft-spoken, yet thunderous. Music had given them light, but too many let the darkness consume it. Number 9. Whitney Houston. Some truths aren't sung on stage, they're whispered behind closed doors. For Whitney, the woman whose voice once touched heaven, those whispers carried the weight of heartbreak. I could never escape Bobby and the drugs. That haunting confession revealed more than the tabloids ever could. To the world, Whitney was untouchable, America's golden girl, a vision of grace and power. But behind the spotlight, she was a fragile soul trapped in a storm of love, fame, and addiction. Bobby Brown wasn't just her husband. He was her obsession, her downfall, and her mirror. What began as passion became a prison. The very man she loved became the shadow that followed her until her final breath. In her last months, friends described her as a woman unraveling, still smiling for the cameras, but breaking inside. Her diary, discovered years later, revealed the truth in her own words. She called herself a bird trapped in a glass cage. That cage sparkled under stage lights, but inside, she was suffocating. Every ovation masked her sorrow. Every song carried the echo of chains she could never break. Whitney Houston wasn't just the voice of a generation. She was the sound of a woman crying out for freedom. Her final confession wasn't about love alone. It was about a soul consumed by the very fire that once made her shine. And today, when her music plays, we don't just hear the power of her voice. We hear the haunting ache of a heart that was never truly free. Number 10. Rick James. If Whitney Houston was swept away by love, Rick James was consumed by his own fire, a wildness that burned brighter than fame itself, until it became his prison. To the world, he was the king of funk, the party's heartbeat, the man who turned chaos into rhythm. But behind the glitter, behind the swagger, there was a soul slowly unraveling. Before his death in 2004, Rick made a haunting confession that silenced even his closest friends. What the world called freedom, he called a cage. For decades, Rick James wore rebellion like a crown, the untamed rebel who refused to bow. Yet every sleepless night, every reckless romance, every blinding party was just another chain he couldn't see. The man who once commanded the chaos was now being devoured by it. In his final years, those who knew him best remember a broken truth in his eyes. He spoke of his glory days with bitterness, admitting he once believed defiance could free him, only to discover it made him a slave to his own cravings. In one rare, quiet moment, Rick described himself as a lost man in a maze of mirrors. Every reflection showed him a version of himself, larger, louder, wilder, yet each one pulled him further from who he truly was. By the time he saw the truth, it was too late. The price of excess had already been paid, with his health, his name, and the peace he would never reclaim. Number 11. Barry White, the king of love and the weight of regret. Barry White, the man whose deep, velvet voice once made the world fall in love, spent his final years haunted by a quiet confession. I left too many children behind. At first, it sounds like a passing moment of self-reflection. But for Barry, those words carried the weight of a lifetime. He wasn't just famous for his lush love songs or magnetic stage presence. Barry was also known for a life of indulgence, one that left a trail of consequences. Behind the spotlight and the symphonies, there were children who shared his blood, but not his presence. As his health faded, his family revealed that this truth tormented him more than any illness. Many nights, Barry lay awake, whispering into the darkness that he had lived wrong, that the love he sang about had somehow escaped his own home. On stage, he was the apostle of romance, promising eternal devotion to millions. But behind the curtain, he was a man at war with himself, a father who preached love to the world yet struggled to show it to his own. That was the pain that cut deepest, knowing his children grew up waiting, wondering, and longing for a father who seldom came. Few people know this, But Barry once wrote letters to his children, letters he never sent. In them, he confessed his fears, his guilt, his dread of facing their disappointed eyes and hearing the question that haunted him most. Where were you when I needed you? Those letters, found after his passing, revealed a side of Barry the world never saw. Not the legend drenched in stage lights, but a man stripped of power, fragile, remorseful, and drowning in the very emotions he once sang so beautifully about. Number 12. Michael Jackson, The Haunting Confession. Even after the stage lights dimmed and the applause faded, Michael Jackson could never outrun the shadows that followed him. Behind the glitter, the fame, and the perfection he chased, there was something darker, something he whispered to those closest to him. They're trying to kill me for the insurance money. Michael didn't say it once. He said it again and again, with the haunted tone of a man who'd seen his own ending. To him, the real danger wasn't from the tabloids or the fans outside his gates. It was closer, inside his circle, among the very people who promised to protect him. Some brushed it off as paranoia. But when the king of pop was found dead in 2009, those chilling words stopped sounding like fear and started sounding like prophecy. Friends and family recalled how Michael spent his final years trapped in a world of suspicion and isolation. He trusted almost no one. Even longtime allies were kept at arm's length. The man who gave love to millions felt utterly alone, especially in the one place he should have been safe, backstage. In one of his final confessions, he told his private doctor that someone was watching him, tracking his every move, every breath. Later, investigators confirmed eerie details that matched his claims, painting a portrait of a legend consumed by fear. Was it exhaustion from a lifetime in the spotlight, or the truth about a conspiracy buried with him? Michael Jackson left behind immortal music, but also a silence the world can never fill. His haunting plea, "They want to kill me," echoes like a warning from beyond the grave. Not just a cry for help, but a heartbreaking reminder of how even the brightest stars can be swallowed by their own shadows. A man who soared higher than anyone, yet fell victim to the darkness no one dared to name. Number 13. Phyllis Hyman, her final note that shook the music world. It wasn't a performance, a chart-topping album, or a standing ovation that made the world stop. It was a single, heartbreaking note. In 1995, Phyllis Hyman, one of R&B's most soul-stirring voices, left behind a message that sent shockwaves through the entire industry. The music industry has used and abused me. And then, she was gone. Phyllis wasn't just a singer. She was poetry in motion, elegance, sorrow, and truth wrapped in velvet tones that could melt or break a heart in one breath. But behind the spotlight, she was fighting a war no one could see. To her friends, she often confessed the pain of being exploited, manipulated, and treated like a product instead of the artist she longed to be. Her final words weren't just a goodbye. They were an indictment, a cry against an industry that built her up only to tear her down. In her last years, despair trailed her like a shadow. She spoke of contracts that trapped her, endless performances despite her failing health, and financial burdens that felt impossible to escape. Each blow pushed her further into isolation. The saddest truth? Those around her dismissed her cries as part of the business. On the night before her death, Phyllis told a close friend that music itself had betrayed her. That friend later remembered the haunting look in her eyes. No spark, no fire, just quiet resignation. When her note was found, it wasn't merely a farewell. It was a haunting truth carved in ink, a final testament from a woman who gave everything to her art, only to have that same art consume her soul. Number 14. Donny Hathaway. The view from the 15th floor window of New York's Essex House wasn't just a glimpse of the skyline in 1979. It was the silent witness to the fall of a tortured genius. Donny Hathaway, the golden voice of soul and R&B, had long told friends he felt watched, hunted by unseen forces lurking within the music industry. Then, one bitterly cold January night, he fell. The police called it an accident, but the whispers never stopped. Some believed it was no mere misstep, that someone wanted Donny silenced. Because Donny wasn't just another artist. He was a truth teller, His music cut through pretense, piercing straight into the soul. And that kind of honesty made powerful people uneasy. In his final days, friends recalled him murmuring, "Whispers in my ear," words heavy with the weight of paranoia and pain. And more chillingly, he once said aloud, "They want to finish me off." Those around him dismissed it as exhaustion, the ramblings of a weary mind. But when his body was found beneath that window, those words suddenly echoed like a prophecy come true. Inside the room he left behind were scattered pages of sheet music, unfinished compositions, haunting fragments revolving around one recurring theme: release. No one knows whether he wrote them in peace or despair. But pieced together with his final confessions, Donnie's death felt less like a tragic fall and more like a mystery. One missing pieces that still hint at the shadowy depths of the entertainment world. Number 15. Al Green, the voice of love, burdened by secrets. It wasn't a deathbed confession, but during a haunting hospital stay after a near-fatal incident, Al Green whispered words that left a close friend trembling. The secret affairs, the children, those are the burdens I'll carry forever. For a man celebrated as the very soul of soul music, it was a rare crack in his carefully guarded armor, a glimpse of the man behind the legend. On stage, his velvet voice could melt hearts and fill arenas. Off stage, his life was tangled in forbidden love affairs, hidden children, and promises broken under the weight of fame. Those secrets haunted him like invisible chains, tightening with every love song he sang. Friends said that whenever people called him the man of love, Al would smile, but that smile wasn't pride. It was camouflage. He knew his version of love was fractured, shadowed by guilt and temptation. On sleepless nights, he'd admit he no longer knew the difference between love, desire, and possession. The same passion that lifted him to greatness also pulled him into darkness. Every note he sang carried the echo of that torment. The ache of a man who gave the world love songs, but struggled to love himself. And Al Green wasn't alone. Many stars, in their final moments, revealed truths too heavy to bear. Affairs, addictions, even whispers of forces pulling the strings behind the curtain. Their confessions weren't just scandals. They were reflections of the fragile, lonely souls hidden beneath the spotlight's glare. Because no matter how dazzling the fame, it could never conceal their humanity. Vulnerable, flawed, desperate to be understood. Their final words still send chills, not for the shock they bring, but for the truth they reveal, that the same pain fueling their art is what made it immortal. If this story moved you, share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold truths of music's greatest legends. Because music isn't just sound, it's confession, memory, and the echo of souls who will never be forgotten.